All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lauren Shelberg. I'm the founder of Tech Halo, and we are so excited to have you with us today for today's discussion, from cold cases to connected investigations. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you've attended previous Tech Halo events, thank you for taking time out of your day for this important discussion. As you're joining, go ahead and drop your agency and where you're from in the chat. We always enjoy seeing the wide range of agencies and professionals represented from across the country. At Tech Halo, our mission is simple. We bring together experienced public safety professionals and technology innovators to create opportunities for education, collaboration, and meaningful conversations around the challenges facing law enforcement and the broader public safety community today. One thing we've learned from working with agencies across the country is that no investigation happens in isolation anymore. Investigators today are working across more systems, more information sources, and more digital evidence than ever before. The challenge isn't simply finding information, it's making sense of it, connecting it, and getting to the right answers faster. Today's discussion is really about that evolution. It's about learning from experienced investigators who have spent their careers solving complex cases while also exploring how technology is helping agencies connect information, strengthen investigations, and uncover relationships that might otherwise be missed. Throughout today's event, the chat will remain open, and we encourage everyone to participate in the discussion. If you have a question for one of our speakers that may require a longer response, please submit it through the Q&A box, and those will be the questions we answer live at the end of the event. You'll find the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen by selecting the three-dot icon labeled as More. I'd also like to thank our technology partner today, LexisNexis Risk Solutions, for making today's event possible, and we look forward to hearing their perspective on how connected investigative technologies are helping agencies address the challenges we'll be discussing today. Now, before introducing our first speaker, we're going to play a short trailer from Season 2 of Philly Homicide, hosted by today's opening guest.
Homicide is back. And when it comes to murder, these are some of the most intense cases in the city of brotherly love.
She hired somebody to take out the woman that was in her way.
He was stabbed in the neck with a pen.
This dude's ready to kill me, bro. I don't care what anybody says. The dude's a maniac. One of the crime scene officers looked in the corner of the crypt and said, "Hey, Joe, there's another one down here."
And they kept saying, "But why? Why did he do this to my mommy?"
From Center City to the suburbs, these homicides tested even the most seasoned investigators.
He pulls out a gun, opens the trunk and says, "You're gonna help me get rid of this body."
In Philly, nothing's more important to cops than justice.
Drop the gun! I'm not going to jail for this. He yells to me, "Holy, get in here. We go."
Philly Homicide. New season begins Saturday, April 11th, only on Oxygen True Crime.
And now it is my pleasure to introduce Chris McMullen. Chris is a retired lieutenant with the Bucks County Sheriff's Office, whose law enforcement career also included serving as a patrol officer in Philadelphia and later as a detective with the Bensalem Police Department, where he investigated homicides, sex crimes, robberies, and other major cases. Today, many of you know Chris as the host of Philly Homicide, where he brings viewers inside complex murder investigations while providing the perspective that only an experienced investigator can offer. Chris, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. So my name is Chris McMullen, and I'm just here to share some of my experiences on working cold cases. Particularly today, we're going to talk about Doe cases, unidentified decedents, John and Jane Does. I have a little bit of statistics, and I'm going to overview a few cases that I had in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, which Bensalem's in Bucks County, and it borders Philadelphia right on its on the northeast side of Philadelphia. And your rule of thumb with a cold case, and I'm sure everybody out there knows this, you have to apply modern day forensics and techniques to solve a cold case. Things that science can do now that was not available back when the case first happened. And the current standards of identification, they've gotten far more advanced, obviously. We have NamUs, which you can upload DNA profiles into the CODIS system and compare that against family reference samples of people that have missing loved ones, missing relatives, obviously dental exams, facial approximations, isotope analysis, that helps you tell the region from where the person may have been from. And obviously down at the bottom, genealogy. That's really what has kicked the door wide open on identifying Doe cases.
Hi, Chris.
Genetic genealogy, in my experience and everyone's, has really kicked the door wide open on that. One thing I learned, don't doubt that your John or Jane Doe may not be local, despite having a lot of media coverage on it. And that's something that I'll touch on as we move forward. These are various photographs of some of the cases I worked on that I'm going to talk about today. And the reason we called this indifference is because, I do believe that when it comes to John and Jane Does, that it is somewhat of a, there's an indifferent attitude towards it. It's somewhat of a crisis. Some stats here, and the rough stats. This is a couple years old, but since 1980, there have been over 278,000 unsolved homicides in the United States. Right now, we'll add over 9,700 cases to that every year. By some estimates, there are more than 40,000 unidentified bodies in the country. Most of them are victims of homicide. 4,400 unidentified bodies are recovered each year in the United States, and about 1,000 of them will remain unidentified. Most states don't even know the number of unidentified decedents in their state. There's no official accounting. It's never been done on that. The sexual assault kit crisis, I'm sure everybody remembers that. There was lawsuits, which prompted legislation and policy changes, that the sexual assault kits, they couldn't just stay on the shelves. They had to be tested, which is a good thing, obviously. My thing is there's little to no funding to bring cold cases up to identified or up to current standards. And I hope that changes. First case we're going to talk about is Bucks County Jane Doe. She's also known as Publicker Jane Doe. And the word publicker, she was found in an abandoned distillery, and the name of the distillery was the Publicker Distillery. And she was discovered January 24th, 1988. She was a white female, according to the anthropologist. She was estimated at being at 17 to 23 years old. And there was also fetal bones found within her remains. She was pregnant at the time of her death. There was some jewelry and clothing that were found with her. Additional clothing aside from the clothing that she was wearing. It was like there was like a suitcase that was kind of opened up and dumped where her body was found. In 2002, the case was reopened. And in 2007, I was able to get a DNA grant to get her into CODIS. So that was a good step in starting to bring it up to modern standards. This is a photograph of the facility where she was found. You can see it's overgrown, it's abandoned. This concrete coming out of the ground there, it's what I would describe as a bunker, or kind of like a concrete bunkhouse. Inside there's valves and pipes. It had something to do with the distillery process. This is a view looking down that opening in the concrete there, and you can see the ladder. And actually you can see down the bottom there, that is actually the skull of Jane Doe there. Different view. That's her legs. She was wearing blue jeans over the pipe there. You can see the tires and whatnot. The grounds became a dumping ground for a lot of stolen cars and things like that. And this is the other view. So you can see her head and this is her torso area. She was wearing clothing, but it was very deteriorated. Some of it was still there. Over on the right there, that's a sculpture, the right photo and in the center. That was done by Frank Bender. He was a very famous forensic sculptor from the Philadelphia area, and he actually solved a lot of cases. Over on the left there, that's some of the jewelry that was found with her, along with a computer generated image that was done with the help of a 3D CAT scan. So the first theory that we had was that Publicker Jane Doe may have been a girl named Jeanette Tanby. Jeanette was 21 years old and she went missing from her home in Bensalem in October of '84. And we had been told that our Jane Doe was dead for approximately 3 to 5 years. So we felt that the timeline was right and the physical characteristics were somewhat similar. There's a comparison of Jeanette Tanby with the sculpture. So what we did was we tracked down her brother. Her brother's name was Joe, and he lived up in the Pocono area of Pennsylvania. Her parents were already deceased, and there was no way to get DNA from them. They'd been cremated. But when I spoke with Joe, he didn't really have any information on his sister. He was in the service when she disappeared. But he agreed to give us a buccal swab, and this was I think it was in '09. And we uploaded his profile into CODIS, and there was no match with our Publicker Jane Doe. Although we did get a match with a different Jane Doe. So while we were trying to solve our Jane Doe, we actually solved another Jane Doe. There was a match with a homicide victim from Buena Vista, New Jersey, that was found in August of 1986. And that was Jeanette Tanby. So we found our missing person and we identified New Jersey's Jane Doe. And there was a suspect developed in that case, but he was deceased prior to her identification. So she was a Jane Doe. She was missing for 28 years. So that still left the question, who is Publicker Jane Doe? So we went back to work on that. And then another theory I had was that she may be a girl named Tracy Bird, and that's Tracy there next to the picture of the sculpture. And Tracy disappeared in April of '83 from Bensalem, and she was 14 years old at the time. And it was actually speculation that she may have run away because she was pregnant, which obviously we know Jane Doe was pregnant. So we got samples from her brothers and her father and her maternal grandmother. Her mother was deceased by the time I started working on this, and you'll see more about that shortly. On the day Tracy disappeared, she'd been driven to school by her mother's boyfriend, a guy named Paul Greenwald. Records show Tracy never attended class that day. And later that fall, her mother, Jean Bird's body was found in Blackbird State Forest in Delaware. And Paul Greenwald, the boyfriend, was arrested for her murder. He wound up committing suicide in prison. He denied any involvement in Tracy's disappearance, although we still had a theory that maybe Tracy's remains were also in Blackbird State Forest because he used to camp down there. He was very familiar with the area. And that theory was looked into back in 2024, along with NECMEC, and there was a search of the forest with dogs and LiDAR and other forensic techniques, but there was no luck. So unfortunately, Tracy is still unaccounted for. Going back to Publicker Jane Doe, that's a ring she had, some other clothing that was found with her. By 2011, through the CODIS system, over 25 missing women had been eliminated as being Publicker Jane Doe. In 2014, we did a 3D CAT scan on her skull at a local hospital, and NECMEC put it through a computer system, which generated a new image of what she may have looked like in life. And that's the film there. And this is what was rendered from that CAT scan. So this was put out to the media as well. I had this case in the media, especially in the Philadelphia area, a lot. That was a sculpture that was made pursuant to the CAT scan. So by 2020, over 50 missing women had been eliminated through the CODA system as being public or Jane Doe, and we still had no identification. And that phrase up there, somebody has got to be missing this girl, that was just something I constantly kept saying. I couldn't believe that, somebody in the area wasn't missing her. Moving into the summer of 2020, I was contacted by Yolanda McClary, who is a DNA genealogist. And she's actually was a producer for Cold Justice and the Jane Doe murders. And she offered her services. She was hoping that she could do a story on it. And I didn't have the money in our budget to do genealogy. So we agreed to get it done, to partner up with her. And Director of Public Safety at the time, Fred Harron, he arranged for Bodie Labs to do the lab work. And we got a profile. And it was uploaded to GEDmatch and FamilyTreeDNA.com. And they started building the family tree on January 18th of 2021. And I literally couldn't keep up with them. They were constantly firing off information at me. And another bump in the road we hit. We actually found a first cousin in the Pocono area. And when I spoke with that individual, she was very interested and wanted to help. But she told me I was adopted and I don't know any of my biological family. So that's a kind of a roadblock you can hit. But actually, 4 days into building the family tree, we made an identification. We found out that she was Lisa Todd, and she was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What happened was we had the family tree, and we saw her brother, Joseph Todd, and her sister, Linda Todd. And what Yolanda's people told me was, they said, your Jane Doe is their sister. So I contacted them, and they told me that when Lisa was 17 years old in 1985, she had vanished. That's a picture of Lisa that I got from a high school yearbook. It's been enhanced a little bit because it was in bad shape, but that's Lisa. And this shows, down on the lower left is the neighborhood, Port Richmond, where they lived in Philadelphia. And up on the right here is where she was found, less than 18 miles away, a straight shot right up Interstate 95. So she was not from the other side of the country or things like that. A lot of people were telling me she must be from the West Coast, or she's not from anywhere around here, but she lived 20 minutes away. There's a comparison with Lisa in the sculpture that I thought was pretty accurate. That's Lisa there right before she vanished. And as you can see, she had a little boy as well. We'll get back to that too. So she disappeared in 1985. We knew she was pregnant. And according to her siblings, she was reported missing. But despite numerous efforts, I could not get a copy of the missing persons report. I'm going to move on to another case right now, and this was referred to as the Clubhouse Jane Doe, or Clubhouse Diner Jane Doe. And this was a Jane Doe that was found in a wooded area behind a diner named the Clubhouse Diner. In the rear parking lot, there was a wooded area, and kids used to play back there. And when they were back there, they found what they thought was a turtle shell. And actually, it was a human skull. And the police were called, and they unearthed a female adult skeleton, completely intact, and it was ruled a homicide by unspecified means. And this is some of the jewelry that was with her and some of her clothing. And again, I put that out into the media as well. I wasn't involved with the case in 95, but I reopened it up later. And I actually exhumed her body in 2007 so that we could get DNA to put her into CODIS. Also, when we exhumed her body, we had another sculpture made and a forensic sketch. And here's a picture of both of them. The sculpture on the left made over the skull. Between 2007 and 2021, approximately 45 missing women were eliminated as being Clubhouse Diner Jane Doe. So once again, we had the opportunity to do investigative genetic genealogy, and we were able to get a a profile to upload to GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. This time, a genealogist named Jennifer Moore of Innovative Forensic Investigations helped me on this. And once Jennifer started building the family tree, we had an identification in 24 hours. And that's our Jane Doe right there on the left. Her name was Mary Beth Hodgkinson. And actually, I thought that sculpture was pretty accurate as well. And again, there's some other pictures of Mary Beth. She was from Warminster, Pennsylvania, about 15 minutes away from where her body was found. She lived in Bucks County. Again, it was, literally on the same road where the diner was. And this case had a lot of media attention, yet we couldn't get the attention of the right people. Common denominator in a lot of these cases I worked on was NCIC or lack thereof. Jeanette Tamby wasn't in NCIC. Lisa Todd was actually in NCIC, but then she was removed, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. Mary Beth was never in NCIC. Lisa was in NCIC when she was first reported missing because she was 17 years old in October, but her birthday was in December, her 18th birthday, and she was purged from NCIC, yet she was still missing. And we did an offline NCIC search, and here you can see, it even said that she was pregnant. And I think that if she hadn't been purged back in 1988, I think my police department would have had a much better chance of identifying her much quickly. But unfortunately, she was taken out. And another one I'm going to talk about is Edward Neese. And he was discovered October 19th of 2003 along the banks of the Delaware River in Bensalem. And two fishermen had found them. Cause of death was drowning. There was no signs of trauma. Manner of death was undetermined. He was too post-mortem for us to put his picture out to the public to try and get an identification. So despite trying to make identifications, the case went cold for about 2 decades. And in 2022, I knew that the medical examiner's office had saved hair samples and fingernails, which we were able to get DNA from, and we didn't have to do an exhumation to get it. And we teamed up with a nonprofit organization who funded the research. And literally 20 years to the day, on October 19th of 2023, investigators met with Edward Neese Sr. of Riverside, New Jersey, and reported that his son, Anthony Edward Neese, had not been seen since '03. And there was a direct DNA comparison done by Mr. Neese with John Doe, and it showed that they were first-degree relatives. And again, Edward had never been reported as missing and was not in NCIC. And there's Edward. And you can see here, it was literally on the other side of the river where he was found. So we're assuming that he went in on the New Jersey side before he was found in Pennsylvania. And in working all these cases, I thought to myself, so many of these cases were not in NCIC. How many other Does are out there that were either purged from NCIC or never entered? I mean, I was just one detective in a small town outside of Philadelphia. And this here, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the starfish story, but this is why I work cold cases. And in a nutshell, the starfish story is about a young boy walking along a beach, and there's thousands of stranded starfish on the beach. And one by one, he's picking them up frantically and throwing them into the ocean so that they don't die. And the man watching him said, "You can't possibly make a difference. There's simply too many." And with that, the boy picks up another starfish, and throws it into the ocean. And he says, "I made a difference to that one." And for me, that's why I work cold cases. You see this photo here of Lisa with her son. By the time I identified Lisa, he was almost 40 years old. And he lived out of state, but I contacted him, and he immediately got on a plane and he flew up. And we sat down and we talked. And he said, "I'm sad that my mother's dead." He said, "But he said, "You have no idea how much I appreciate this, because my entire life, sometimes I wondered if my mother had actually abandoned me." So I think we made a real difference to him. And anytime you get a closure in a cold case, there's the family, it makes a world of difference too. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for your time.